There is a specific kind of problem in the dating world right now that is quietly dismantling the peace of some of the most successful men I know. If you're a younger guy, I need you to lean in and pay close attention, because this is the preventive medicine you didn't know you needed. And for the older fellas, well, some of what I'm about to say is probably going to ruffle a few feathers, and that's fine. Truth usually does. Welcome back to the channel. It's good to have you here. My name is Harold, and this is The Hidden Code. We're here for one reason: to help you navigate the often treacherous waters of modern relationships and develop a mindset rooted in actionable, practical psychology. No fluff. No academic theories that don't work in the real world, just the hard-hitting reality of how the game is actually played. Let me tell you about a long-term coaching client of mine. On paper, this guy is the absolute blueprint. He's 50 years old, sits in a C-suite office, and pulls in a 7-figure income that most people only see in movies. His net worth is sitting comfortably in the high 8 figures. He's 6'2", stays in peak physical condition, and basically lives a high-performance life that breathes fire. He's got what I like to call 600 horsepower pants. Everything he touches turns to gold, and he's got the discipline of a Spartan. He is, by every objective measure, in the top 1% of men on this planet. But despite having mastered the world of business and finance, he keeps hitting a massive, frustrating wall when it comes to the middle-aged women he's dating. This is a guy who can negotiate multi-million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, yet he finds himself getting star-eyed and completely disoriented by women in their 40s and 50s. We've spent hours breaking this down, and he actually asked me to make this video because he realized that if a guy with his resources is getting bamboozled, then the average man doesn't stand a chance without a roadmap. The issue is that men, especially high-achieving men, are often wired to be problem solvers. We see a project, we see potential, and we want to invest. But in the dating market, that investment mindset can be your greatest liability. My client keeps falling into the same trap. He meets a woman who looks incredible for her age, while someone who seems to have her life together, and he projects a version of her past onto her present that simply doesn't exist. He's looking at her through the lens of who she appears to be today, ignoring the decades of data that shaped her. Listen, brother, you have to understand that success in one area of life doesn't automatically grant you discernment in another. You can be a lion in the boardroom and a sheep in the ballroom if you don't understand the psychological cargo people are carrying. Before we go any deeper into the mechanics of why this happens, I want to invite you to join our growing community of men who are tired of the mainstream narrative. Hit that subscribe button and join a tribe dedicated to shared growth, masculine excellence, and the kind of value that actually changes the trajectory of your life. Yet we're building something exclusive here, and I want you to be part of the foundation. The star-eyed phenomenon is real, and it's dangerous. It happens when a man's biological drive for beauty and companionship overrides his executive function. He sees a woman who has maintained herself, and he forgets that maintenance isn't the same as new construction. He starts thinking he's found the exception to the rule. I've seen it 100 times. A guy will tell me, "Harold, she's different. She's been through a divorce, but she's so grounded." And then 3 months later, he's calling me because the drama has started to leak through the cracks. It's like buying a high-end luxury watch from a pawn shop. It looks shiny under the LED lights, but the internal gears have been grinding for years without a service. So you're paying full price for a mechanism that's one tick away from a total seizure. We need to lock this concept in right now so you don't forget it when you're out there in the field. Do me a solid and drop the word awareness in the comments below. It's a simple affirmation to remind yourself that your eyes can lie to you, but the data never does. Tell me, have you ever found yourself making excuses for a woman just because she checked a few aesthetic boxes? Let's talk about it. This disconnect between appearance and reality is the big secret that many middle-aged women keep, often without even realizing they're doing it. They've learned how to present the best version of themselves, the restored version, but they rarely mention the mileage on the chassis. They focus on the updates, the new paint job, and the refined interior. I'm hoping you won't ask to see the service history. But as any seasoned gentleman knows, it's the service history that tells you if the car is going to leave you stranded on the side of the highway at midnight. Most guys are so dazzled by the post-divorce glow-up that they fail to realize they are stepping into a narrative that started long before they arrived. A narrative filled with open loops, unresolved conflicts, and a staggering amount of emotional weight. If you don't know what to look for, you're going to end up paying for a history you didn't create. And that leads us to a very specific analogy that every man needs to memorize if he wants to keep his sanity intact. Now, if you've followed me for any length of time, you know I'm a car guy. It's not just a hobby, it's a lens through which I view the world. I love my new Audi, a machine designed with modern precision where every bolt and every line of code is optimized for current performance. But let's talk about my true love, the classics. If I had to pick a favorite, it's probably a 1970 Boss Mustang 429, but I wouldn't keep it stock. I'd resto mod the hell out of it. We're talking updated independent rear suspension, a modern fuel-injected crate motor, leather-wrapped Recaro seats, and a big brake kit to replace those ancient drums. When you look at a car like that, it's breathtaking. It's got the soul of the 70s with the shine of the 2020s, but here's the cold. Yeah, hard truth that most guys forget when they're staring at a beautiful, restored woman in her late 40s. No matter how much money you pour into the interior, it's still a 1970s chassis. It still has the structural fatigue of 50 years on the road. Middle-aged women in the dating market today are the human equivalent of a resto mod. They come out of a 10 or 15-year marriage, hit the gym, and head straight to the surgeon. They get the post-divorce tatas done, the tailored maid look, maybe a little work on the back end, professional hair, and a makeup routine that could hide a small city. They look incredible. They walk into a room and they bamboozle guys who are still plugged in because they look like a high-performance machine. But brother, you have to look at the odometer. Boss, it doesn't matter if the paint is fresh. The body has 200,000, 300,000 miles on it. It's been through multiple owners, seen a dozen accidents, and been driven hard in bad weather. That mileage isn't just a number. It's the accumulated weight of every heartbreak, every "he cheated on me" story, and every legal battle they've endured. When you date a woman like this, you aren't just dating the woman in front of you. You're dating the ghosts of every man who came before you. I remember a guy I knew, let's call him Mark, who started dating a 46-year-old woman who was, by all accounts, a knockout. She looked 35 and had the energy of a 25-year-old. Mark thought he'd found the Holy Grail. But 3 months in, they were at a nice dinner, and the waiter brought the wrong bottle of wine. A tiny, insignificant mistake. And suddenly she wasn't just annoyed, she was in a full-blown emotional meltdown, crying about how men never listen and how her first husband used to ignore her needs. In that moment, Mark wasn't having dinner with a beautiful woman. He was being held hostage by a 1994 trauma that had nothing to do with him. That's the mechanical failure of a resto mod. It looks like a supercar, but the wiring is old and brittle. One small spark and the whole thing shorts out. You don't deal with that level of structural instability when you're dealing with younger women. They haven't had their spirits crushed by 3 different ex-husbands or spent a decade carrying the resentment of a failed domestic life. We have to be honest about the sexual marketplace, even if it pisses people off. Men and women do not age the same. A woman's sexual market value peaks in her early 20s. The studies prove this across every culture and continent. When men are shown a lineup of women from ages 18 to 70, they consistently gravitate toward the 22 and 23-year-olds. They don't pick the 45-year-old with the Brazilian butt lift and the expensive highlights. Why? Because biology values reliability and low mileage. A new model comes with fewer headaches, fewer breakdowns, and significantly less baggage. They are more fertile, more optimistic, and haven't spent 20 years building a burlap bag of bricks to throw at the next man who steps into their life. As a seasoned gentleman, especially if you've worked hard to get your own life together, why would you trade your hard-earned peace for someone else's decades of chaos? Yes, you've spent your life upgrading your own engine. Don't settle for a chassis that's one pothole away from a total loss. Before we move into how this baggage actually manifests in your day-to-day peace, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been bamboozled by a high-end resto mod only to find the engine was blown a month later? Drop the word clarity in the comments if you're starting to see the difference between the paint job and the performance. It's time we stop being star-eyed and start being engine inspected. Now, if we're being brutally honest, The sexual marketplace is the only economy where people try to sell a depreciating asset at a premium price and get offended when you ask for the vehicle history report. We've been conditioned by a very loud, very modern narrative to believe that age is just a number, and that a 45-year-old woman with a couple of divorces is prime dating material for a high-value man. But biology doesn't read social media posts, and it certainly doesn't care about empowerment trends. A man's value is largely built. It's his future, his resources, his stability, and his ability to protect and provide. A woman's value in the context of a long-term, high-stakes relationship is heavily weighted by her past. I know that sounds old school or harsh, but if you want to navigate the hidden code of reality, you have to stop looking at what people say and start looking at how they actually behave. When women look at us, they are scanning for potential. They want to know where we are going. When we look at them, we need to be scanning for history. We need to know where they have been, because where they've been determines the psychological ghosts that are going to be living in your house once the honeymoon phase wears off. Let me give you a personal example from my own life that perfectly illustrates this ghost in the machine. Years ago, after I got through my own divorce, I started dating again. I met this single mom who, on the surface, ticked every box I thought mattered at the time. She was attractive, she was sharp, and she seemed to have her world together. She had 2 kids from her previous marriage, and while I knew that meant some baggage, I figured I was a seasoned gentleman who could handle it. We dated for a couple of years, and for the most part, things were smooth, until they weren't. We had this big event to go to, something she really wanted to attend. I was at her place, getting ready, and I realized my shirt was a bit wrinkled. Now, I'm a big guy, I'm fit, I make bank, and I was there to be her arm candy for the night. I asked her a simple favor. Hey, do me a solid and iron this shirt for me while I'm in the shower? You would have thought I'd asked her to donate a kidney. She looked at me with this cold, hard stare and said, "I'm not ironing a shirt for a man." I was floored. I wasn't asking for a domestic servant. I was asking for a 5-minute favor so we could both look good at her event. So I did what any man who studies psychology does. I started probing. I wanted to know why such a small request triggered such a massive wall of resistance. And then the ghost came out. She told me this story about how, when she was in her mid-20s, her mother had died. Shortly after, she came home from years of traveling the world to find her father was already seeing another woman. She walked into the house and saw this new woman ironing her father's shirt. In that moment, 20-some-odd years ago, she made a vow to herself. She would never iron a man's shirt because to her, it represented being replaced or being subservient to a man who didn't deserve it. Brother, that I was paying the price for her father's sins and a stranger's actions from 2 decades prior. I was the one bringing the nice car, the high status presence, and the financial resources, but I was being treated like a villain in a story I hadn't even read. This is what I mean by baggage. It's not just having kids or having an ex. It's the invisible psychological hard coding that forces you to contend with a past you didn't participate in. When you date a younger woman, she hasn't had the time to build these massive, fortified walls of resentment. She hasn't been cheated on, lied to, or disappointed by 3 different husbands yet. Her software is still clean, optimistic, and open to building something new. But with these older resto mods, you're constantly tripping over wires that were crossed in 2004. You're navigating a minefield where the triggers are hidden under years of self-work that clearly didn't work. Think about it. Why would you, a man who has likely spent his 30s and 40s grinding to get his life together, invite that kind of structural instability into your world? You've earned the right to a partner who brings peace, not a laundry list of vows they made because their ex-husband was a loser. We need to acknowledge that a woman's past is the blueprint for your future with her. Let's get a quick reality check in the comments. Drop the word legacy if you understand that you are building for the future and don't have time to fix someone else's broken history. Tell me, have you ever felt like you were paying the debt for a guy you've never even met? This is the fundamental disconnect. And women are taught to look at a man's future. Does he have his stuff together? Is he making money? Can he provide a lifestyle? They are hyper-focused on what we can do. But men are often shamed for looking at a woman's past. We're told it's insecure or judgmental. It's not. It's a risk assessment. If I'm going to invest my time, my energy, and my resources into a woman, I want to know that the chassis I'm looking at isn't fundamentally compromised by decades of unresolved trauma. Younger women bring less drama, more fertility, and a level of respect that hasn't been eroded by 1,000 small betrayals. They haven't been through 50 or 100 guys, and they haven't learned to treat men like a burden they have to deal with. They see you for who you are today, not as a representative of every man who ever let them down. Oh, and that leads us to the most visible part of this baggage, the burlap bag that these women carry around like it's a diamond-encrusted accessory. The most difficult part about dating in this demographic isn't the physical aging. It's the invisible architecture of resentment that some women have spent decades building. I want you to visualize something, brother. Every time one of these women has a bad experience, every time a guy breaks her heart, every time she gets cheated on, every time a marriage falls apart, or a guy just doesn't live up to her shifting expectations, she takes that experience and turns it into a brick. It's a heavy, jagged, dirty brick. She doesn't process it, she doesn't heal from it, and she certainly doesn't leave it behind. Instead, she puts it into a sturdy, reinforced burlap bag. She throws that bag over her shoulder and carries it into every new relationship like it's a sacred relic. To her, that bag isn't a burden. It's a badge of honor. It's her proof that the world is a difficult place and that men are fundamentally flawed. She walks into your life, drops that bag on your dining room table, and expects you to help her carry it. But here's the kicker. Nobody else can see the bag but her, yet you're the one who's going to be tripping over it every single day. I had a friend named Dave, a high-level contractor who finally hit his stride in his late 40s. Dave was a good guy in the traditional sense. He felt a sense of duty to date women his own age because that's what society told him a mature man does. He met a woman who had been through 2 divorces and had 3 kids from 2 different fathers. She was the queen of the burlap bag. Every date was a narrated tour of her past traumas. If Dave was 5 minutes late because of traffic, she didn't see a busy man. She saw her first husband who used to go to the bar instead of coming home. If Dave wanted to spend a weekend with his buddies, she didn't see a man maintaining his social health. She saw her second husband, who she claimed was always looking for an escape. Dave spent 2 years trying to prove he wasn't those other guys. He was exhausted. He was paying an emotional mortgage on a house he didn't even live in. Eventually, Dave realized that he wasn't a partner. He was an unpaid therapist and a punching bag for a history he had no part in writing. He finally walked away and started dating a woman in her late 20s. The difference was night and day. His home went from being a courtroom where he was always the defendant to being a sanctuary where he was actually respected. Now, when you make a choice like Dave did, society is going to come for you. You've heard the script. Why don't you grow up and be a man? Why can't you date someone your own age? Are you afraid of a strong, independent woman? Listen to me closely. Those aren't arguments. They are shaming tactics designed to keep high-value men in the market for depreciating high-maintenance assets. Women and society at large will try to convince you that your desire for a younger, less burdened partner is a sign of immaturity. It's actually the opposite. It's a sign of extreme maturity and high self-worth. It's the realization that your peace is non-negotiable. You didn't spend 20 years building a career and a life of excellence just to spend your weekends de-escalating a resto mod's midlife crisis. And your opinion of yourself must be so solid that their shaming becomes invisible. You don't owe anyone a fair chance at the expense of your own happiness. You owe it to yourself to choose the path of least resistance and highest joy. Before we wrap this up, let's lock in the mindset. If you're done letting society guilt-trip you into accepting chaos, drop the word freedom in the comments. It's time to claim yours. At the end of the day, the truth of the matter is that nobody cares about the bricks in that burlap bag. I don't care, you shouldn't care, and the marketplace certainly doesn't care. We live in a world that rewards results, not excuses. If a woman hasn't dealt with her past by age 45, she's not going to deal with it because you're a great guy. She's just going to incorporate you into her narrative of disappointment. But as a seasoned gentleman, you have the ultimate leverage, the capacity to choose. You can choose a life of baggage and ironing incidents, or you can choose a life of vitality, respect, and a partner who sees you as her hero rather than her latest project. The choice is yours, but the consequences are permanent. I really hope you got some value out of this deep dive today. This is a journey that requires constant vigilance and a community that has your back. I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel right now and join a growing community of men who are dedicated to taking the red pill of reality and turning it into a life of purpose. We are a tribe of men who value truth over comfort and shared growth over solo struggle. By hitting that sub button, you're signaling that you're ready to step into a higher version of yourself. Let's keep your head on a swivel, stay focused on your mission, and never settle for a chassis that's going to leave you stranded. I'll see you in the next one.